Hi, good evening guys. I'm Claire from Eli-b Create and Sew. Tonight I'm going to be showing you how to create your very own pattern weights. So what I'm going to do is show you step by step how to do these. We don't need a pattern, we're just going to measure it out straight onto the fabric. And what I'm going to do is take you through each step, and while I let you catch up, if you're sewing along at home, I'll just check the comments, say hi to anyone who's joined. I am trying to keep an eye on it all. This is my first time, so bear with me. But the objective of today is really for you to have fun, get back into sewing if you're kind of a little bit rusty, and just have fun really. So they're quite small, but the idea is that you're going to be able to upsize them to make them a little bit bigger, if you so choose. So we're going to start off and we're going to draw out, I'll put this on the table actually, we're going to draw out our fabric, on our fabric. So you're going to take your fabric and we're going to use a set square, so a little set square like this, and a ruler and a friction pen. Now I love friction pens because they disappear, the ink disappears when you apply the heat of the iron. So admittedly you do have to wash them, because I have heard stories of the ink kind of coming back again if it's suddenly in a cold environment. So, but it's a really easy way of marking your fabric on the wrong side without having the marks permanently there, as so to speak. So we're going to take our fabric, I'm gonna just try and tilt the camera down a little bit. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to measure out 20 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So that's the size that we're going to be making, 20 centimeters by 10 centimeters. So I have got a selvage edge on my fabric. So it makes actually measuring a lot easier, but hypothetically speaking, if you didn't have a selvage, what you could do is cut into your fabric like so and just tear it. Now this obviously works with woven fabric, so cotton is woven in a plain weave, so you've got lengthwise threads crossing, intersecting with widthwise threads, so it will always tear at a 90-degree angle. So what we're going to do is start off and take our set square, and we're just going to line it up with the edge of the fabric like so, and we're going to just square across like so. Take your ruler and just extend that line. So our first measurement is going to be cut to 20 centimeters. So I'm going to measure 20 centimeters. Let's make sure you can see this. So we measure to 20 centimeters and make a little mark. Then we're going to square down. So where I've got that little mark over here, I'm now going to square down. So I want to put my set square so that it is parallel or sitting on that line. And we're going to square down like so. Now we're going to measure our width, which is 10 centimeters. So just measure out your 10 centimeters. And because this side we know is straight, we're going to measure out 10 centimeters and literally just join them up. So you can see I've marked on the wrong side of my fabric, which means that I can see what it is that I've marked out. So now just cut along your line that you've drawn in, like so. Now you might want to cut out a few of these, so make a note of the measurement. So 10 centimeters wide by 20 centimeters long. And we're now going to put the pieces together right sides facing. So if you want to catch up and have a look and cut out a few more, do that now. So I'll cut out one more with you so I can just repeat that process. So we're going to square across. So I've got a nice straight line there, but for the purpose of just reinforcing, we're going to square across from the selvage edge, extend that line to 20 centimeters. So make sure it's 20 centimeters, make a little mark, squared down to 10 centimeters. So I'm measuring 10, and then I'm just going to join them up like so, and then cut them out again. So you'll have two that we will be working with, and the objective really is that you will get to duplicate this process. Okay, as many times as you like. Now you can change the size of these quite easily. So we're now going to fold them in half. So I've got the two that I'm working with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now measure in a seam allowance. So I'm going to measure down this edge 1 centimeter and in 1 centimeter. So I've done another little diagram. I think these are going to be inverted though. So unfortunately I can't write backwards, but the objective is we're going to mark in a seam allowance just so that you have a guide, especially really here at the corner, so of our corner. So I'm going to take the ruler, and on the folded edge we're just going to mark 1 centimeter. Now if you are good at following seam allowances, you don't really need to do this step, but this just helps you to have a guide visually when you get to that part of the stitching where the needle goes into the fabric, to know where to turn when you get to your corner. So this is the corner that we're going to be stitching. Okay, so we're going to do the same on this side. So at the corner where I'm going to be turning to sew my corner, I'm marking in 1 centimeter and marking in another centimeter. So I'm going to let you do that, and then I'm going to just quickly check on the comments, and then I'll come back and tell you the next step. Okay. Wow, there's people from all over the place. So lovely to see you joining on. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to pin. We're going to now pin the seams together ready for stitching. So I always like to place my pins in at a 90-degree angle. So if I place it like this, hopefully you'll be able to see. So we're going to come into the fabric and then push the pin out. So in and out, so that it's at a 90-degree angle with the edge of the fabric, and make sure that the pins are within the seam allowance. So you'll notice that I've marked the seam allowance and they are nicely sitting within that seam allowance. So what that does is it stops you from actually having marks on the rest of the item. So I generally, as a habit, I tend to teach my clients to pin inside the seam allowance, because if you're working with a delicate fabric like silk, for example, you don't want to have pin marks on the actual garment itself. So we're going to pin those two sides together. Okay, down the length of the seam. Okay, so that's the one side pinned, and now I'm going to do the top side. Okay, so there we go. Oh, that's a loud exhaust. Right, okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to stitch along the top and then down the bottom. So we're only going to stitch two sides, okay? And what we're going to do, hi Cheryl, is we're going to reduce our stitch length as we approach our corner. So the reason that I recommend to reduce your stitch length is that we're going to cut away a lot of the area around this corner. And by reducing your stitch length every time you're sewing a corner, whether it's in a cushion cover or on a collar, when you reduce your stitch length, you're actually securing the seam a lot better and making it a lot stronger, especially because you're going to cut away. So what that means is on your sewing machine, you're going to reduce your stitch length. So normal stitch length will be at 2.5. We're going to take it from 2, I'm going to do 2 stitch length on the pattern weights today, just because we're using rice and small little things that can easily pop through a bigger seam allowance for a bigger stitch length, for example. So we're going to go from a 2 stitch length down to a 0.5 when we approach our corner. So you'll see that the stitches, it's just a little diagram, but that it is going to get smaller. Okay, so if you have caught up with doing your pinning, we're now going to do a little bit of the stitching. So we marked in 1 centimeter on the seam allowance. So we're going to use the 1 centimeter seam allowance guide on our needle plate on our sewing machine. Okay, so on your sewing machine you'll have a little needle plate, this little metal thing, and that we're going to follow the 1, which on my machine is a 10. Okay, so it's usually a 10, 15 and 20. And hi Anna, thank you. So 10, 15, 20, and we're going to be sticking to the 10. Okay, so we're going to start sewing on the folded side. So we're going to stitch from here all the way down to the corner. Now remember, we're going to reduce our stitch length, okay? So press a foot down, making sure your fabric is just there on the edge of the fabric. Hold on to your threads before you start stitching. Now I find, you know, when you hold on to your threads before you start sewing, it actually stops your threads from pulling up and bunching at the beginning of your seam. So hold on to those threads, and we're just going to stitch forwards a few stitches, take your pin out, and then reverse back to the edge. So just watch that you don't stitch over the edge. If you stitch over the edge, you're going to snap your threads. So there's a lot of little things that generally tend to help if you kind of get the troubleshooting sorted out straight away. So we're just going to stitch down. I'm on a 2 on my machine, and about 3/4 way through, I'm now going to start reducing. So I'm going down to 1.5, down to 1. Now I'm very close to my corner, so I'm just going to, hopefully you can sort of see. It's a little bit hard having one camera, but we're giving our best shot. So I'm getting to the corner, I lift my presser foot. Now I'm going to turn, there we go. If I do that, then you'll be able to see at least. I'm going to turn it diagonally, so I've got the little bit of fabric here to the right, so it's forming a little triangle. I'm just going to do 2 hand rotations, so I'm using my hand wheel to turn the needle, lift, and put the needle in, lift the presser foot again, and then turn your fabric. Now I'm back on my 1 centimeter seam allowance. So if I try and just turn that round a bit better so you can try and see. So you see we're back on our 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I can see in the little gap there of the presser foot, if I lift that up higher, you can see that I'm on my corner. Okay, so marking out the corner, that's really the purpose of us doing that, okay? It just helps you to have that visual aid as to where you need to turn. And like I say, you know, these are little techniques that you can apply to various different sewing projects. It's not just for making this, so corners, okay? So as we stitch away, we're going to increase our stitch length again, so that when we get to the end of the seam, we're back on a 2 stitch length. Sorry, just back in. So all the way to the bottom, and then reverse a little bit. So you only need to back stitch about 3 or 4 stitches, okay? And now we're going to take it out. So needle out, lift and pull your thread out like so, okay? Right, there we go. So we've started, decreased our stitch length, done our corner, and we've finished. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, on the other side, we're going to put a little snip in the folded edge. Okay, and this is to mark out the center of the fold, okay? So we're now going to take that little snip. Hi, Nicola. Hi, Sue. Okay, and we're going to take that little snip over there, and we're going to match it with the seam allowance here. Okay, so we're going to put those 2 edges together like so. So we're going to start sewing about here, okay, so about a presser foot in from the edge of the fabric. And again, just give yourself a couple pins. It does help to hold it in place. Okay, so we're going to sew from about here all the way to the end. Now we're going to just back stitch beginning and backstitch at the end. So backstitching is just reversing. So again, a 1 centimeter seam allowance, and I'm positioning this so that my presser foot, as you can see at the bottom of the camera there, the presser foot is on the edge of the fold of the fabric. So that's going to give me enough space when we turn it through so we can fill it. So again, hold on to those threads, forwards and backwards, and all the way to the end. And a little reverse again. Okay, needle up. Now you'll notice as well, when I'm turning my hand wheel, I'm always turning it towards myself. If you turn your hand wheel backwards, you tend to get a bunch or a jam in your machine, because your machine's constantly wanting to move in a forwards motion. It's only when you use your reverse lever that it will then change the direction of the feed dogs to get you going backwards. So we're now going to snip that off. Now we're going to trim our corners. So I've done another little diagram. Hopefully this will help. I know text is all backwards, isn't it? Oh, sorry. But now what we're going to do is just to show you what we're going to do at the corner. So we're now going to basically trim off the first triangle, okay? And then we're going to trim off a second and a third time. So basically what we're doing here is just reducing the bulk that's going to turn into that corner. Okay, right. Does it make a difference? Just looking at a question quickly. What's the best to use as starting? You have a hand singer. These are crews. Okay, does it make a difference on a sewing machine? Are you talking about the hand, turning your hand wheel? Or just an actual sewing machine? If you don't mind just letting me know about that question. Okay, so we're going to now trim those corners down. So I've taken off the first bit, and I'm now going to take off the second bit. Just be careful you don't cut your stitches. You don't want to cut the corner clean off. And then we're going to cut the other section like that. So you can now see we've really reduced the bulk of the fabric that has to occupy that corner. Okay, so I'm going to do a similar thing in that I'm going to just trim off the excess on this corner, like so. And now we're going to, you've got this like little thing that looks like a little tea bag almost. So we're now going to turn that through to the right way. Okay. If I've missed saying hi to anyone, I'm sure there's been loads of people I've missed saying hi to. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to look, trying to look. Right, okay, so I'm just going to use my point turner to push this through. You could use a scissors. So I'm just pushing out the corner and inverting the whole little bag. Okay. How are we doing at home? How are we doing, guys? Are you enjoying this? I hope so. Yes, thanks for the love hearts. Okay. Now, I made a couple extra of these earlier in the week, and I changed the sizing up. So sometimes when I'm kind of trying to chat to, I have family who live far away in South Africa, and sometimes when I'm trying to chat to them, I'm like trying to do stuff while talking to them. Life is busy as we know it. So I upsized this pattern and I made a phone holder. So you could actually use, I think I've made my initial holder a little small, but you could use this concept to make it a little bit bigger, and then make yourself a little phone holder. Okay. Oh, thanks, Angela. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Natasha. Hi, Donalyn. Do I sell point turners? I'm waiting for some to come back in stock. This one is one I've treasured from South Africa that I've had for a few years. So I'm quite precious about my point turners because I love them. They are a really great little tool for pushing out corners. Okay, so without piercing through the fabric. So keep an eye out on our Watson's Fabrics That's our little online fabric shop. We have got a wide selection of haberdashery and things like that available as well, but point earners, waiting for those to come in. Okay, right, so I've turned my little chap inside out. Now I'm going to take my funnel, okay, and you could use, if you don't have a funnel, you could just use a piece of cardboard to just get the rice and lentils, or you could use pearl barley, you could use anything, anything you like really, to fill these little pattern weights. I really did start a little bit too close. Okay, right, so we've got our funnel on there, and I've just made a mix of rice and peas. Just got to make sure I get this over the hole properly, otherwise I'm going to be getting a stitch ripper out. So a seam ripper, we all know we like a seam ripper, no regrets. Okay, lovely. So I'm now just going to literally pour it in, fill it up, and then I'm going to use a hand needle and thread to close it up. You could use the machine and use a zipper foot if you wanted to. You could also put a little piece of ribbon or something if you wanted to hold onto it with a piece of ribbon. So it's really up to you. There's a couple options, but I'm just going to hand sew it closed so that you get one of the hand sewing stitches out of today's session. Okay, should we just make it a little bit fatter and fuller? Yes. Okay. Right, I think we're there. Okay, there we go. Right, so hand needle and thread, we're just going to get that. Okay. Now I've done a single thread doubled up and just knotted at the base. I think using a double thread on some applications is better. Again, it's a bit stronger, and if you think about it, when you're sewing with the machine, you have two threads holding your fabric together. You've got a bobbin thread, so the bit that's in the undercarriage of the machine, and then you've got the thread on the top. So two threads will just make it a little bit stronger. Okay, so I'm going to just start by going in through the fold, like so. Just wait for the thingy. Let me move my machine out the way for now. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is literally just do a little whip stitch. So that's in, out and over. So I'm going to come in the one fold, out the other fold, like so. And then pull nice and tight, in through the one fold. I think it's going to take time to readjust. In through the one, out through the other. I'm going to just change to the back, and let's just see. So bear with me, I'm just going to change the direction of the camera and see if it's a bit better from behind here. Okay, let's have a look. So there we go. So in through one fold, out through the other. Whoops. There we go. And then keep them quite close together. Okay, because again, we've got rice and bits and bobs in, so we don't want them to fall out. So keep them nice and close together, in and out. So hopefully that's helped give you an idea. So just keep going all the way to the end. Okay. And when we're finished, we're just going to do a couple stitches on top of itself and then knot it off. But like I say, you can put a little ribbon in here if you like. And I must say, these are actually, I know we are doing them for the functionality of using them as pattern weights. And I use mine all the time when I'm sewing. Especially it helps to kind of hold the paper pattern in place on the table while you're measuring your grain line. Getting your grain line straight, as you will know, is really important, especially when you are making clothing. Because what you don't want is your grain line to be off, because then your garment will twist and swing around your body. So I'm just going to do a little knot, and we're going to just tie that off. So when I'm working with multiple things and I need to hand sew again and again, I'll do one knot close to, actually I'm going to reverse the camera again. Hi Val. Okay, so you can see over here I do one knot close to the edge, I leave a little gap, and then I do a second knot so that I can now snip off nice and close, and then I'm ready to continue I'm set up ready now to carry on with the next one. So I'm going to let you catch up and just have a look and see. I think there's a couple questions. Yes, that's right, Jane. If you were giving them as a gift, you could put a Made with Love tag. Yes, that's right, you could. Yeah, absolutely. So that is our pattern weight. So, and I wanted to kind of just show you the one that I made in a different size. This is the one that I've made to use as a phone holder. So I kind of perch it like that, and my phone sits up against this. So a nice little kind of, and to be honest, the other evening I was sitting in front of the telly with my daughter, and she was playing with this, and there's just something nice about something weighted, really. So I hope that you have enjoyed today's session, and that you have fun making these little pattern weights. Next lesson that I'm going to be running as a live, we're going to be doing some pressing equipment. So I'm going to be teaching you how to make your own tailor's ham and your own sleeve roll. So again, the idea of doing these little videos is just little fun projects that are quite easy, where you're learning a couple techniques, like how to sew a really nice corner. This will be dealing with how to sew curves, and I will post more information on Eli-b's Facebook page and Instagram pages as to what you're going to need for this session. So thank you guys for joining. And I'm just looking at a couple more, not so long. Fantastic, Cheryl, that will be great. I hope you have all enjoyed. Please, if you do make some, please feel free to share them on our page, Eli-b Create and Sew by Claire Watson. It would be lovely to see what you guys come up with on your own from today's tutorial. So, well done. Thank you very much. Have an awesome weekend. Bye.